Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the pregame lobby. I'm your host, Trep, joined by my co-host, Mr. Williz, and we have a weekend of CDL matches to recap and another weekend of CDL matches to predict. As you guys will see up there, you can see the standings for the CDL after week one and the standings of me and Will's pick'ems after week one as we head into week number two. Had some good matches, had some blowouts, but you're going to see a lot of that in the early stages as these teams are still working on, figuring out how the game plays, how the match play. You got a whole new game mode, so you're going to see a lot of 50-50s and a lot of blowouts, not really much in between. But Will, just give me your overall assessment over the weekend of matches we saw before we head into actually breaking down each individual match.
Yeah, I mean, I more or less agree with what you said. Not like super shocked all around. But there were some upsets that kind of came out of nowhere. Which is always good to see. You know, I there's one team I'm sure we'll get to that you and I have both been counting out pretty heavily that had a pretty big upset.
Mm-hmm.
And that was interesting to see. It kind of looked like they might like a sleeping giant might have awoken type situation in that match, or it could just be off weekend. Like I said, we'll talk about it a little bit more. I think it was a really fun starting weekend. Watching these matches further, like, confirmed for me that Overload is a fantastic pick for the CDO. Already better than Control. We just watched Control for what, like 6 years?
Yeah. And
already so much better.
And if we just get the little tweaks we want with the game mode, it could be really good.
There are some complaints. The clock situation is a little interesting. Right now, if a team runs it up, so you can score 4 times per round, and then it resets, and then it ends the round automatically, and it goes to round 2. So first to 8, basically, or until time runs out on each side. But we've kind of run into like an issue now where a team will go up like 0-4 in the first round, and then we get to the second round, they get up 6-0, and we're kind of just stuck for 2 minutes doing nothing, because like at that point it's just a game of keep away,
yeah.
So I don't know if you noticed that, but there are a couple Overload matches that seem like they drug on a little too long for no reason.
It's kind of similar how Uplink was back in the day when the team would blow a team out. They'd always grab the ball and 15 it in the 15 spots. Or they just hold on to it in their spawn and they throw it out whenever they got reset. So I feel like it's kind of hard to balance a game mode in that way. Me personally, I would like to get rid of the whole like first to 8 thing. Like, can we just let people score? Give us 2 5-minute halves, right? If you want to, or 2 3-minute halves. Give us what you want to give us. I do think we will probably head towards that. I do think enough of it will be seen where they'll be like, okay, maybe we shouldn't have a score limit on a half, because it's weird how a team you could score 4 points in 2 minutes, but then your round automatically ends. But then that team, the other side, gets the whole 5 to score as many as they want. So I think
it's just a little off.
Yeah, it's a little off. There's just some little tweaks that need to be made, and I agree. There were some Overload matches where teams were up like 5-1, and then it was at that point it was just they were just holding on to it. Because
it'll be like 2 minutes left, and they know, okay, at this point we need to hold the detonator for 15 seconds, and then it becomes mathematically impossible because there's also a spawn delay on the detonator.
Yeah, it's like 10 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, and so like after, once you hit like that 2-minute mark, if you're up like 4 or 5, you hold it for 15, 30 seconds. At that point, it's literally mathematically impossible if you add up all the time. And so it just becomes one big game of like, okay, well, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. I've also seen a lot of talk of pros wanting the ability to drop the device after they pick it up.
Yeah. I did see, I don't remember exactly I don't remember if it was Daniel Say or a dev, but they said that they're looking into putting the ability to drop the detonator and the bomb in S&D.
Okay. Well, the bomb in S&D has been a thing before, so that's not shocking. Yeah. The detonator I think that would be a good thing. It kind of gives you Because right now, if you pick up the device, that you're literally a man down no matter what. Now I'm cool with
Yeah.
like the automatic pistol pull out and all that kind of stuff. But if two of your guys go down, and you're in a 2v4 at that point, you would really hope you could drop the detonator and pull your regular gun out and try to make a
Yeah.
play on that. But right now you're just kind of stuck with it. But I do think they've already implemented some good changes to it, so we're already on that path of getting it to where we want the game mode to be. Now we just gotta polish. Like this year needs to be the year we polish out Overload and get it to the point it needs to be at to where it can be implemented the next CDL season. Um, I'll tell you what's
I think
more.
is largely. Oh
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll say, which I think is largely the issue that we had with Control.
Yeah.
Right, it came out and there were so many issues that like people wanted fixed, and they made some small changes that really helped, like ticks counting toward overall instead of like it ticks count first before lives. In the past, it was just like your ticks didn't count toward who got like defense and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, eventually they changed it to where however many ticks you got per, over the rounds determines who gets defense in round 5. Um, but I think just with Control, the changes that we wanted, like that people really, really wanted, never came. And then after 3 iterations deep, you can't really change it at that point, and you
Yeah.
just get stuck with it. So if you hop on Overload down, make all the, like, even if it has to be like rapid breakneck change after change after change for every major, do it now instead of like us being stuck for 3 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Another thing that is just absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion, is this stupid first round glitch in S&D where
Yeah.
they're having to switch teams, and then we're having to sit there for an extra 30 seconds as the round ends. Codcaster. I think it might be the beginning of every game mode where like your first life doesn't count towards the Codcaster scoreboard. There's just a lot of like little small bugs that need to be fixed rather quickly. Because I know the pros are really like they're really tight about the whole first round glitch. Like they're not happy that that's in the game.
I'll tell you another thing that like worked better than I thought it was going to, like kind of like following up that conversation that started with the overload, was the two sniper lives per sniper in S&D.
Yeah.
That actually worked way better than I thought it was going to. I think my only complaint about it literally is like keeping track of it can be hard.
Yeah.
I don't think the league will ever like put a graphic in or something like that because it's a GA. It's not like an official rule.
Yeah.
But I think that would be cool if the league could start putting in like a graphic to show like how many sniper lives they have, or if the casters can like.
Well, I
do a
will say
little
I
bit of
saw
a closer
today that
job.
it sounds like teams have like a designated sniper. It's like the people
Yeah, they
we've
figured it
seen.
out, yeah.
The people we've seen with the sniper already are probably going to be the ones pulling it out for each team. It seems like that's the way the teams are kind of like balancing the like, oh, how do we follow how many lives they have left. I've also saw today, or at least in the past at least past 48 hours, that the pros have voted on keeping snipers in, period. So
Yeah.
I don't think the results of that have come out. We haven't heard it's been taken out, so I would imagine snipers are still in for S&D at this point. I love seeing snipers. It's cool to see. I mean, I don't think we've seen any like crazy, sniper kills or clutches, especially over weekend 1 yet. So it just adds a dynamic to the game. I would love for it to stay in. I'm cool with the 2 life thing. I thought it was going to be kind of boring and kind of stupid, but it actually, you saw Dashy, he pulled a sniper out later on in an S&D, when he needed to get a little bit of a change of pace. So, a good, I like snipers being in, and I hope that it continues to be allowed in. But Will, let's jump into these matches, man. Let's talk about the games we saw. We saw almost every team, or maybe we saw every team. Did we see every team this weekend?
I think
Yeah,
so, yeah.
we saw every single team. Some look good, some not so good, and we will discuss every single one of them. So, Will, why don't you take us into our first matchup that we are going to go over here? We're going to go over all 9. Some will be a little bit more in depth than others. But we are going to talk about all 9. You guys are going to see all the stats, the scores of the maps, and all the player stats, and we're just going to give our overall opinions and our thoughts on all these matches. So we'll take us into the first one that we got here.
kicking off the 2026 season, we had OpTic Texas taking on the Riyadh Falcons. This match went probably the way I'd say 90% of everybody expected it to. OpTic 3-0'd Riyadh, and I guess my biggest takeaway from this, because it was expected to be an OpTic 3-0, is just like how rough Falcons kind of looked in this match specifically. They had another match this at the end of the weekend that we'll get to where things looked a little bit better for them. The maps were a little bit closer. Sorry, but yeah, just not really what you'd expect when you look at that Falcons roster on paper. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you and I have talked a lot how we thought that the team wouldn't really mesh well, even though the names look good on paper. But it's still shocking to see a team that is 3 world champions getting beat in that manner. Other than that, though, OpTic continue to look good. You know, they're still playing well, and I don't really have too much more for that series. It really went the way you expected it to. The shocker's really just on the Falcon side, like I said. Like, you'd think that team might be able to figure it out. Maybe they can. Remember, weekend 1, so still plenty of time to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, you had a 1.8 from Merck, first series of the year. I think the kid's getting better as time goes, as he's playing on OpTic, which is pretty impressive because, his ability that he has, he's showing it. He's showing how good he is. A 0.68 from XNID, worst KD in the lobby. Obviously, this was a very one-sided affair. Like you said, about 90% of the world probably saw this coming when it comes to the competitive scene. 1.5 from Shotzi. I mean, the superstar doing superstar things, and then of course, Merck following up that MVP year with a great start to this year. So,
I will say, I'm not too certain if this is like actually gone through, but I think I saw something about Riyadh already doing like role changes, putting XNID back on that SMG, for Kiz maybe. Because I know there was a debate about whether or not XNID was going back to the SMG, and people were like, there's a lot of speculation on who it would be. And I saw a lot of good points of people saying, like, if Pred wasn't going to play flex for OpTic, he's probably not going to flex for Falcons.
yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see if, like, those rumors are actually true going into, like, this upcoming week of matches. But I at the beginning of the season, like, so when we were talking about this team, I specifically said, I think you're fated for putting Kismet on an SMG over XNID when you already have a slower main SMG and Pred. But, we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked, because I feel like with a team like Riyadh, you kind of have to, you kind of can't wait. It all depends. It also all depends on results. You kind of can't wait to kind of start having the discussions of, role changes aren't really that dramatic as actual roster changes, but you can't really, if you're sitting here and you're struggling that bad, and their hard point, isn't terrible, but their overload and their S&D is awful.
Yeah.
So, it's not shocking to see discussions already happening with somebody. I think they're definitely the worst off right now. Maybe them and Vancouver kind of like side by side, but
Vancouver has an excuse.
Yeah.
They've got young guns and a Halo player on their roster.
Yeah.
There's no excuse from that Riyadh roster.
For sure. I agree. All right. Let's jump into our next one, Will. Our next series, second series of the weekend. We had the Carolina Royal Ravens taking on the Boston Breach. I know you chose actually we both chose Carolina to win this series. Boston come out and win it 3-1. Honestly, I was impressed with Boston in this series. I feel like, especially map 1, man, that's a 250 to 153 win where like 70%, 80% of the map they were getting outslayed. So Boston just came out and they played really, really good fundamental Call of Duty. They have a round 11 search loss map 2. Other than that, they kind of controlled the respawns, the 3-2 overload on Den, super close overload there. Looking at the teams, I mean, Nasty with a 1.4. I remember on the Scump Watch Party, Imbos was saying Nasty was in his bag in this game. He's kind of picking up where he left off from last year on Vancouver. Really good series out of him. .82 from Slasher the Vet over on Carolina, the worst in the lobby. Tied with Purge, but you had a couple close maps in there. Maps 2, 3, 4 were all relatively close. Map 1 was just a blowout by Boston, which was just good fundamental Call of Duty. A super solid win for Boston here to kick off the year.
Yeah, I mean, hell of a turnaround too if you compare how they looked at that Monster Invitational. I mean, I think they got DFR'd at the Monster Invitational. So this is exactly what you're wanting to see if you're on that Boston roster. This is a much needed turnaround, because I guarantee you left that Monster Invitational feeling kind of rough. Especially looking at Carolina, who made it. Yeah, I think they made it to day 2. You're pretty decently far in the tournament. I think the biggest takeaway for me is just Slasher there. Slasher looks pretty rough. It's still way too early to tell, right? We're again weekend 1, but it's sort of the same thing what we said about Riyadh just a second ago. At a certain point, you're gonna have to go, or you need to figure stuff out, and having a .68 on the, was it a .68? Is that what you said? Something like that. Not good. Having a stinker on the first series, you gotta, especially having it a decent starting at the Invitational. You got to start figuring stuff out here if you're Carolina, because these losses will add up quick. You know what I'm saying? So great turnaround from Boston, I think, is the biggest takeaway from that series.
Yeah, and it kind of excites me to see Boston a little bit more, see what kind of juices they have, but also you got to give a shout out to Lurks, man. Lurks has looked good ever since the Monster Invitational. Yeah. He looked good in this series, so I think you have 2 young guns on Carolina who have shown they can hang. Now you just have to put the pieces together. And so we'll have to see if they do that. But take us into our third match, Will. Final match of the day on Friday.
Yeah, we had Thebes taking on FaZe. It's a good little 3-0 here in favor of the Thebes. When you look at this match specifically, we'll talk, FaZe has another match this weekend. But when you look at this match specifically, things kind of went exactly the way that we expected it to. I picked Thebes 3-1. I think you picked somewhere in the same fashion, 3-0, 3-1. FaZe, they aren't looking where you'd want them to be if you're a FaZe fan. This series specifically, am I correct? I don't have the stats up like Trep does, but am I correct in remembering that Simp kind of looked good and everybody else kind of looked terrible?
Yeah, Simp had a 1.3. And Abizi had a 1.3. So
yeah, it was the Tiny Terrors really were the show outs for that one, right? And no one else was obviously people were playing their game, but no one else had any crazy standouts. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. I think we've been a little hard on this Thieves roster, especially you. You've voiced that you don't know if this is a quote unquote super team. And I've voiced that I think. I definitely think there's an upgrade on the Abizi side. I don't necessarily know about the Kenny for Ghosty trade. But I still do think Thieves are holding true. They're in that, top 3, top 4 slot. They're still looking where they need to be. Really, a match like this just starts making you question, what is that top 4? Especially when we get to FaZe's second match this weekend. It's, we're already off to a little bit of a roller coaster. I think I have less to say about this matchup than I do FaZe's second match.
Yeah, this was just a grueler. It was a 3-0 Thieves, but every map was close. You had 0-4 worst KD in the lobby with a .76. Best KD in the lobby was, again, what we said, Simp, 1.38. But Abizi's right there behind him at a 1.35. A close series. For me, I still think there's chinks in the armor for Thieves. Yeah. If you had to pick a team that looks, because there's 2 teams right now with a 6-1 map count at 2-0, and that's OpTic and Thieves. And you give me OpTic over Thieves any day of the week right now. And I feel like that's probably a unanimous say from everyone. So, FaZe played a good series, made it super interesting on the overload, and then just fumbled it. They were down 4-1, tied at 4-4, and then just let a BZ cap in overtime to lose. So who knows how interesting that series could have gotten if that goes a different way. But ultimately, Thieves get the 3-0 win. They do what they had to do, and you.
I will say if you need to be sold on Overload and you missed this match specifically, go watch that Overload map at least. That's the map that really sold me on Overload being the third game mode this year.
Yeah,
was that Thieves and FaZe match right there.
Yeah, that was a crazy one. That was a wild one, and I couldn't believe my eyes.
Oh, I was mind blown.
But
I was mind blown.
Let's jump into our first match on Saturday. The Toronto Koi taking on the Miami Heretics. I know I picked Koi, you picked Miami. I even predicted the score. I said Koi probably win this game 5. And they did. They win at game 5. Grueler of a series here. I mean, off the rip, it looked like Koi was about to mop the floor with Miami. The first 2 respawns, the HP and the Overload, as you all can see, were just, disastrous for Miami. I mean, absolutely terrible. But, Miami were able to stabilize. They win the map 2 S&D. They win the map 4 Hardpoint. They force the game 5. Koi just a little too much in the end. Best KD in the lobby was from Insight at a 1.23, which is awesome to see for Insight. Worst KD in the lobby was from Metals and Trakes, the rookie, at 0.82 over on Miami. I think this was probably a game 5 win for Toronto that should have probably been 3 or 4. Especially with how your respawns looked in the beginning. You lose around 11 in map 2. I think Toronto looked good. All members positive. You got Joe at a 1.2. You got Real at a 1.2. The SMG's looking good. Like I said, happy for Insight at a 1.23. Insight's gotten a lot of crap over the past couple years. And so to see him play on that level and help Koi get their first win of the season is huge.
Yeah, I think just my notes for this one is if you're that far positive above the team that you're playing and you're going to game 5, you're doing something wrong on like a fundamental level.
Yeah, there's not much fundamental COD being played there.
Yeah, they outslayed them massively. I don't think anyone was positive on Miami.
Nope.
And barely won. You know what I'm saying? I think I did. So they were talking about it on the Scump Watch Party. Apparently, Miami only had a week of practice. Like they had major visa issues, leading literally up to the matches. So, at that being said, I think you give Miami a lot of credit here. Look like they have fire on what's could potentially only be a week of practice. If you're Miami, you're mad you lost, obviously, but you're not full doom mode yet. You know what I'm saying? There's life there. But I did we agree that this Toronto roster could end up being like a sleeping dog almost, a little on
yeah. I mean, I think
5th, 6th roster.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. There's no way we didn't say it could be a top 6, maybe even top 4.
If after watching this first weekend of matches, if it's who's your sleeper pick to randomly win a major, the underdog pick, it'd be either Toronto or G2 at this point. So I think Toronto looked great. Just clean it up a little bit. You can't outslay like that and almost lose. Clean it up though.
Well, takes into match number 2 on Saturday.
Yeah, so match number 2 on Saturday, we had Paris taking on Surge. It was a very easy 3-0 for Paris. I kind of saw this coming. I think as it stands, Surge, you already said it. I think it's Surge and Riyadh are kind of fighting for that worst looking team so far. Surge, there's just a lot of work that need to be done. I mean, it's to be expected. They do have Legend on the roster. This is his first, he was literally playing Halo Champs 3 months ago. You know what I'm saying? So you give them a little bit of credit there. They don't look as bad as I thought they were going to, considering their roster situation there. But I think this is just a tough one, man. to go up against mates as your first match of as the opening weekend is a very tough ask. So feel bad for them. Mates did exactly what we thought they were going to do. Um, but I do think there's maybe hope for that Surge roster. I just don't know. I think right now you're looking at top 8. Anything more might be a little ambitious, but I wouldn't say to blow it up. After just this weekend, I think there's definitely hope there.
Yeah, I mean, just quick work for Paris. Ghosty 1.53 in the series. Best KD in the lobby. Worst KD in the lobby was Lunars at a 0.82. This went exactly how I expected it to go. I will say Legend 0.84, not awful, but 5,700 damage in 3 maps, man. That just can't happen. That just can't happen. Well, I mean,
gotta shoot a little bit.
Yeah, we gotta shoot our gun, man. Like, what are we doing? Fucking fighting ghosts? Like, we gotta do something. 5,700 damage. I mean, by far lowest in the lobby. We got to get the engagements up. Got to shoot the gun more. He's not gonna get better if this is the damage we're gonna put out. It's like he's probably in that phase of like not knowing what fights to take 100% yet.
Yeah.
And like trying to understand.
To be successful at Call of Duty, and this is kind of like, even I understand this as someone who's never really played super competitively. You have to have an internal clock that you have to be able to keep track of, like 50 different timings to be able to play like well in COD. You know what I'm saying? You got to know breaks, you got to know routes, you got to know spawns, you got to know, you know what I'm saying? Like, even down to like stuff that you would even like timing, how long it's been since someone shot to know whether or not they might be rushing you or throwing short. There's just like timing. It's all time. It's a big internal clock that you have to master, and that clock is going to be different from Halo. I think it's probably pretty similar, which is why we see so many Halo pros have success in COD. But I say give the guy time. Dropping a 0.8 in your first pro series with like 3 months of practice. I mean, hell, dude, how many people are getting in that lobby and not getting a kill? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think the biggest thing is you got to be in it more. You gotta give yourself the fights, man, and give yourself. You're gonna have to take the hard losses on the chin and understand that this is gonna take time. This is a roster full of young guns. There's no vets on this team, so this is gonna be like, this is the definition of a process with this Vancouver roster. So, but 5,700 damage just ain't gonna cut it. You gotta
get shit on.
Yeah, you gotta run in there, man, and you gotta just understand.
You got a 0.7, but you got double that damage. Okay, at least you're putting people one shot from your team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you got to get in there. Like, put them one shot and go negative is way.
I mean, that's telling me he's not taking any entry fights and he's just trading the one shot.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's why I was like talking about the internal clock. That tells me he has no timings down.
Yeah,
he's not taking fights when he needs to. He's either showing up too late, showing up too early, and getting like not getting comfortable in the way he needs to, getting shot in the back, shot in the side. He's just got some work, but he's slightly passing the eye test. I think there is hope for Legend. I don't think he looked terrible. I think he looked new, which is the important part.
Well, we're gonna see him twice this weekend, so we'll see what happens there. Let's move into our final match on Saturday, Will. The G2 Minnesota taking on Cloud9 New York. I know we differed in this prediction as well. You took Minnesota. I took Cloud9. Banger series. Super close series. Yeah. Minnesota win it 3-2 in Game 5. I mean, this is the definition of a kind of series you want for competitive Call of Duty. I mean, like, only one person had less than a 0.9 in this lobby, and that was Skies on G2. Yeah. So, I mean, the damage output is insane. I mean, this was just definition of headbang. Hard points were super close. The S&Ds and the overload were kind of dominated by Minnesota. But, even with a wrong prediction, I'm still kind of high on this Cloud9 team. Hard points look good against a solid G2 Minnesota team. you kind of had that output from Afro, which that was like a question mark. Was like, how's Afro going to look on this C9 team? You kind of had that output from him. You need a little bit more from Vivid and Beans, but on the Minnesota side, you have Estriel with a 1.22, which is a great start to his run here in Black Ops 7. And then you have Kremp, who has been looking good in every match we've seen from him. He dropped the kill record in the Invitational. So a really solid kickoff win for Minnesota.
Yeah, I knew that this was going to be the match to watch. Oddly enough, we'll get to it. The second match on Sunday ended up being another match to watch, even though we didn't think it was going to be. But yeah, these teams, when I saw them play each other in that Monster Invitational, it was just as big of a slug. Like, they were just like slugging it. You know what I'm saying? They like trade after trade after trade after trade. I knew this was going to be good. Um, I think as it stands, I said this when I picked G2. I think they just look a little bit more complete than C9 do. And even you said yourself, I think C9 has a little bit of work, but I don't think they're far off. I think they do look good. Like, that's a solid team. That's a team, they're playing anyone other than G2 or like the top 3, top 4, whatever. You're going to pick C9 almost every time as it stands, I think, in my opinion. And I think any given Saturday in this case, they win that match. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't think it was like one team completely outshined the other. I think it was small differences on the side on G2 side and like the S&D and the Overload that edged it out, but fun match.
Yeah, super enjoyable match, super fun match to watch. So Will, let's get into Sunday, man. Final day of matches to kick off the CDL season in Black Ops 7. Why don't you take us into the first match on Sunday?
Yeah, we had our second showing of Thieves and the Falcons. 3-1 in the favor of Thieves. Again, this match kind of went like you thought it would. I think we both said Thieves 3-0. Riyadh take the first hard point, right? Was it the first hard point that they took?
Yeah.
I remember correctly? Yeah. So I guess maybe there's some life from Falcons. They won a hard point. They can win a respawn. But just as we've said our piece on both of these teams already. Thieves, there's some cracks in the armor. Definitely a beatable team, but still, I think the clear top 3. Riyadh, work has to be done and quick because like they don't look good at all.
Yeah. You have Pred 1.19 highest KD in the lobby. Kismet 0.71. So, there's definitely some issues there that need to be worked on. Your hard point's not bad. I mean, both times you get over 200 in the hard points, you win map 1. But, man, you were embarrassed in Overload and S&D. It wasn't even close. So, there's a lot of work to be done for the Falcons.
Yeah.
But let's move into...
That leads us into match 2. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Match number 2, man. This was the match. This was the match right here. I think this was match of the weekend.
This one ended up being, I said it was going to be G2 and Cloud9. Still a good match. This one ended up being the match of the weekend. We had Paris taking on FaZe. We both had the mates winning 3-1, 3-0 in that fashion of some way. FaZe ended up taking it in a game 5. And this was just like, this is exactly, I feel like, how do I want to say this? I feel like everything that we had been saying about FaZe, it's almost like they heard us specifically and turned it around for this one. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is I kind of expected this to happen at some point. I'm not going to lie. If you go back, I was kind of like giving Simp like the Omega gas in the preseason episode. And he's shown it. I think Simp is looking great so far on these first 2 matches on the weekend. But I will be completely honest. I don't think this takes away from Paris. I think they are still the second best team. I just think the more and more FaZe figure it out, they're going to edge themselves into that top 3, top 4. You know what I'm saying? I think once FaZe continue to get like better, they're going to be interchangeable with Thieves, in my opinion. It's just gonna depend on whether or not they can continue this progress that we've seen. Is it progress? Was it an off weekend from Paris? Who knows? I just know it was fun to watch.
Yeah, Paris, really good hard points, dominated both of them. But then you just got dominated in the overload and the S&Ds. I mean, game 5, you were 6-0. So, a big bounce back win for FaZe after that loss to Thieves to start the season. Simp, highest KD in the lobby, 1.26. Lowest KD in the lobby would go to Draws at a 0.75. So you had the highest and lowest on your team. You win the series either way. Again, like I said, that's just a huge series win for FaZe. That's the series they needed to win. Starting out 0-2 is not the start you want, especially from anybody in that FaZe camp. That's not the start you want, and that's a big pickup for them, a huge pickup for them to start the year.
It's also a match you need to win just simply because of who it was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right now, any of these teams they beat in OpTic, they beat a Mates, how they beat a Thieves. That team speak call after is, come on, these guys suck. These kids are ass. Fuck, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that's the hype that you need. COD is a very big mental game, and if you can catch fire and like get hype and like start believing yourself like super heavy, you can just like manifest wins. I mean, we've seen it before. Like teams who should not be winning, just like I always think back to the Vanguard year when Crim6 and the Crim6 Hydra and their who was it? Crim6 Hydra. It was the subliners team in Vanguard. Crim6 Hydra, Paul X. Who was their fourth? Kiz. They just like randomly willed those wins and fucking somehow qualified for. Did they qualify for champs?
Yep.
Yeah. That's like they went from like 11th place to 8th in 2 majors.
Yep.
Like you can do it, and you can just will it. You know what I'm saying? If you got enough like blind faith and hype, you can do it. But that's a very tall ask at the same time. You can't really bank on that.
Well, let's move into our final match of the weekend, Will. OpTic Texas taking on G2 Minnesota. And G2 came out swinging, man. They win map 1, 250 to 197 on Scar Hardpoint. And everybody was like, uh-oh, hold on now. OpTic's losing hardpoints. What's happening? Rest of the series was pretty convincingly OpTic. Mercules had a really good S&D on Raid. You have a 3-0 win on Den Overload, and then a dominant map 4 HP. So a really good like first map for Minnesota. But after that, it was all downhill. Dashy with a 1.34 in this series had his way. Let me tell you, I had Dashy, I had Ghosty, and I had Kenny on an underdog pick over the weekend for maps 1 through 3. And out of all the players, I did not think Ghosty was going to be the one to sell. But I also did not know that Dashy was going to drop a 1.3. So had a great series. Worst KD in the lobby would be Skies at a 0.79. Not what you want from the vet over there on Minnesota. But, you drop that first map if you're OpTic, and you get a big bounce back in the SD, and the rest of the series is just history. So that's a 2-0 start for the boys in green.
Yeah, I think they just look good, man. We just spent all that time talking about how good G2 look, how good Cloud9 look, kind of right there in turn. They come out, they win first map, but then OpTic just steamroll. These guys are good. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to like overglaze and get too overconfident in the team because it's well established we're OpTic fans. You get a little too overconfident. You think your team's gonna win everything, then they start losing and it hurts. You know what I'm saying? So like,
but you also can't sit here and not say they're the best team in the game.
Yeah, they
are. They're the best.
I'm not gonna say they're like leagues above everybody else because obviously like Mates have proven that they can beat them, but they look very good. I'd say that they're number 1 overall right now. And it just it feels good to be an OpTic fan, but at the same time, like I'm not gonna take away too much from G2, like I said, and act like them getting steamrolled by this OpTic squad means something bad for them, because they've already shown in their previous match this weekend they can play. You know what I'm saying? So if you're G2, you take this one on the chin, go back to the drawing board, kind of talk about your mistakes. there's still a lot of like momentum
Oh yeah.
and hope
Oh
there
yeah.
if you're that team. This is not a match. I can promise you, these guys were not beat up too bad about this match.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, 3-4 wins gets you in the winners bracket at the major.
Yeah.
So, you've already got one under your belt. You have I think, yeah, they play once this weekend. And of course we'll get into our predictions of that match, but 3 to 4 wins get you winners bracket more than likely. So, you've looked good to start, and you just got to keep it that way. OpTic's steep competition. I think everybody knows that no matter who's playing them.
Yeah.
But let's move into predictions for week 2, Will. And we're going to start, obviously, for today, Friday, December 12th. First match, Riyadh Falcons taking on the Carolina Royal Ravens. Dude, I don't know about you. I'm like so kind of toss up on this series because there's moments where I think Riyadh could maybe pull a series like this out. I'm going to give the edge to Carolina and the Young Guns. I like their S&D and their overload better. They had a good start to the hard point against Boston. You just got to play a little bit more fundamental, a little bit more sound. I got Carolina 3-1.
I got Carolina 3-2, sort of for the same reasoning that you just said. They look better. They look decent in the game modes that Riyadh looks terrible at.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give them 3-2, but Riyadh is showing life in these hard points, and if you take 2 hard points, if you can take the respawns, which is where they're showing the most life, you can take the series if you're Riyadh. It's just gonna depend on whether or not you can clean that overload up. I'm pretty comfortable right now in thinking that they're going to need more than just 1 week of practice to clean up that S&D. But respawns, they could swing it. But I'm still going to give the edge to Carolina.
Yeah. Let's move into map. Keep saying map instead of match. Match number 2. G2 Minnesota taking on the Boston Breach. This has Game 5 potential written all over it. 2 teams that have looked solid off the bat. God, it's just it's such a tough matchup to pick because I think both teams have looked solid in their own ways. For me, I'm going to go Boston Breach here. I think I'm going to pick Boston to win this series, especially if you see Nasty continue the way he played in that first series against Carolina. I think G2 have played a little bit steeper competition, but I don't know. Just something about Boston speaking to me. I got them winning. I'm going to say 3-2.
I got G2 3-1. I just think they look way more fundamentally sound than Boston right now. But we're 1 weekend in. You know what I'm saying? I could be wrong. I'm kind of outside of OpTic, Thieves, Mates. I'm kind of taking shots in the dark here.
Yeah.
So yeah, G2 3-1 for me.
Well, let's move into our final match. Vancouver Surge taking on the Toronto Koi. I feel like this is probably a pretty easy matchup to choose here. I imagine we're both going to go Toronto in this scenario. Yeah. I got Toronto 3-0. Vancouver just needs the work, man. They need the reps. They're going to get the reps in this series, but I don't think it's going to be close. I like the Toronto boys.
Yeah, I got Koi 3-1. Yeah, I always try to give, when I'm not sure, 100% certain, I always try to give at least one match or one map win, but I don't see Surge pulling out a victory here.
Yeah. Well, take us into Saturday, huh?
Yeah, so we'll start off Saturday with kind of a banger, honestly. We got Paris taking on Thieves. When I look over this weekend, we got another kind of like a banger to end us on Sunday. We'll get to, but
yeah,
this is definitely, I think, the most interesting match of the weekend. Especially since Thieves are 2-0 and Paris have lost 1. You know what I'm saying? 2 FaZe, who in my opinion are kind of, after that win over Paris, I think FaZe kind of might be right there on par with Thieves. Their matchup was close. LA won all 3 maps, but FaZe played them close in all 3 maps. So that being said, I got Mates winning 3-2. I think this one could go at the distance.
Yeah, it has all the writings to be a banger. I like Mate's hardpoint, and I like their ability to steal one more map in the series. I also have Mate's 3-2. I just think, no bullshit, I think they're the best hardpoint team in the game, even better than OpTic.
Yeah, they're
Their
good.
hardpoint is very good. So, not saying Thieves couldn't just come out in 3-0, but I do just like the thought of Mates a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. Second match on Saturday, we got OpTic taking on Miami. This says OpTic 3-0 all over it for me. Maybe 3-1. Miami showed a little bit of life in their hard points, but well, you say that, but like not really. I don't know. You got like at this point maybe 3-4 weeks of practice if you're Miami. You're not, in my opinion, you're not beating OpTic yet. OpTic 3-0.
Yeah, I have OpTic 3-0. I think this is kind of similar to Vancouver. You're just not as behind. You just need reps. You need more time. You need more practice. You have a very fundamentally sound OpTic team. I don't know if you watched scrims today. They were scrimming Mates.
I did, yeah.
And they just look. They look like the most fundamental. I mean, I'm pretty sure they didn't drop a map against Paris today in scrims, which scrims are different than everything else.
Did you watch them play Cloud9 first?
I did not. No,
I think it was Cloud9. Yeah, they
just steamroll.
Cloud9 quit. Yeah, like quit most of the maps.
Yeah,
like Beans was at one point sitting in the back of the map spinning in circles on the overloads.
Yeah.
So.
And I do think OpTic's the best overload team in the game. Their overload is very, very good. It's just like I said, Miami's just they're just a little behind. They got to catch up a little bit. Trakes was late getting into the States. So yeah, I got OpTic 3-0.
I agree. Rounding us out on Saturday, we got Surge taking on Cloud9. We've said it plenty of times. You literally just said it. Surge need more time. They're not there yet. They need to keep playing. And after that matchup against G2, I liked what I saw from Cloud9. So with that being said, I'm taking Cloud9 3-1. I don't think it's impossible for Surge to win a map here or there. I just don't think they're taking matches.
I was about to say, I think Vancouver win a map in this series. I don't think they win the series, but I do think they'll win a map. What game mode? I have no fucking clue. But if our results stand, you're going to be 0-3 after this series. Yeah. After this series, you really got to be stepping it up. After this series, you got to start ramping up and finding some success, or a lot of question marks are going to start flying. With that being said, I agree. I have Cloud9 3-1.
Yeah. That takes us into Sunday. Starting off, we got Falcons taking on the Boston Breach. And I'm going to be honest, man, this is kind of like a repeat of match 1 of Friday for me. I don't fucking know. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Do I see Falcons maybe like randomly taking a hard point? Sure. But same as I think I said for the Ravens, I think Breach look way better than Riyadh do at 2-3-5. So I'm gonna take Breach 3-2. I think Riyadh can maybe sneak out the hard points, but I don't see them beating anyone in Overload or S&D yet.
Yeah, I've got Boston. I'm going to go Boston 3-1. By this time Sunday, I would hope my opinion on Falcons has changed a little bit, but right now, your hard points you can probably contest, but your S&D and your Overload are god-awful. And like you said, it's just so hard to give them either of those game modes against anybody right now. So, yeah, I got Boston 3-1.
Second match on Sunday, we have Heretics taking on Cloud9, and I'm literally gonna run the script back on what I said for the Cloud9 versus Surge match on Saturday. More time, not there yet. Cloud9 look better. I'm gonna take Cloud9. I'm gonna take Cloud9 3-2. I think Heretics have more life in them than Surge do currently. So I think it might be a little bit of a closer match, but I still don't see them taking the victory.
Give me Miami over Cloud9. I like the fight you gave Toronto. And I think if you give that same level of fight against Cloud9, you can win that series. You're not beating OpTic. If you beat OpTic, then the Miami versus OpTic curse is real and it needs to be studied. But I just like the matchup they have. You have a couple of series under your belt at that point. And I think Cloud9's a very beatable team, especially for Miami. I think Trakes has a good series in this series. Give me Miami 3-2.
Okay. That leads us into our final match of weekend 2, the final match before our winter/holiday break.
True.
We got the Toronto Koi taking on FaZe. This is, I alluded to, like, we have 2 matches that could end up being bangers this weekend. I think this is the second match that could end up being a banger. I'm taking FaZe 3-1. I think I got a little bit more faith in them after they beat Paris. But I think this screams Game 5 heavily.
Give me Toronto. No, I'm just kidding. Give me FaZe.
Yeah.
I agree. I think this series has that Game 5 potential. Simp just looks too good. And if you get any level of production from the other 3 with Simp on the level he's been on, then
especially if Draza wakes up. I think 04
that man his ass. I've been
Abuza
saying he's ass.
Have looked okay. Draza just has not looked to like where he usually does. He's had a rough couple seasons. And I was really thinking
he hasn't dropped above a 0.9 yet, I don't think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's looked rough. And I was really thinking now that he's away from... I genuinely was thinking Celium was the issue that we were seeing with Draza. Because he hasn't looked like the normal Draza since he joined FaZe in MW3. I thought it was Celium. Maybe not.
Might just be Draza. Draza might have a mental block.
Yeah, you never know. So... you get Draza to wake up, I think this could be a 3-0. I think FaZe could look like a whole different team if you get Draza to wake up and look like how he was looking when he was on Thieves back in the day. But he ain't there right now. So, like I said, I'm taking FaZe 3-1, but I think this has Game 5 potential.
Yeah, I got FaZe 3-1. Agree, Game 5 is definitely a possibility. I just kind of like I said, you get any level of production from the other 3, and Simp stays on what he's on, you're not beating him. At least Toronto's not beating him. So, give me FaZe. I agree with you. And that concludes predictions for Week 2, ladies and gentlemen. That also means that concludes CDL matches until January 9th is when matches return after this weekend, which is a bummer because we got to go almost a whole month without matches. But it's okay because it's the holiday season. Christmas is right around the corner. It's going to fly by. All right. I finished my college semester today, took my last final, so now we all get to enjoy a nice holiday season, enjoy some Christmas, enjoy some New Year's. Don't worry. We're still going to be here. We're still going to be here every Friday for you, talking to you. I think we might take the time over the break to really look into each team and each individual player and just see how these teams are meshing, what needs to change heading into, the second half of Split 1, and just, dive into a bunch of different things, CDL/Call of Duty related. So I imagine there's going to be plenty of stuff for us to talk about in the coming weeks in the CDL and outside of it. We thank you guys again for watching yet another episode of the Pregame Lobby. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button. It pushes it out to YouTube, out into the algorithms of all the people. Gives us hundreds of thousands of views. If only that's how it worked. But yes, hit that like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and you want to keep seeing the Pregame Lobby. We greatly appreciate everybody who comes in and hangs out with us every time we post an episode. It's been a lot of fun. I still think we're still jostling with the idea of watch parties. I don't
know how it's gonna work because of the way the CDL is doing.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you right now. I'm pretty positive I can get access. Because they gave me access last time that we had this whole thing going on. You couldn't, because they did it kind of back in MW2, like everybody could watch party, but there were like official watch parties where like you had to sign up for it and go through it with, Call of Duty, and then they gave you the okay. So like back in MW2 when it was last on Twitch, I was an official watch party of the CDL. You probably remember that. So if that's something we can do and I can apply for it and get approved, then yeah, for sure, I would love to watch party them. Now, I will say, I don't know if you realize this, Major One's in Birmingham, which means we'd have to be up early as fuck to watch part of those matches. Is it not Birmingham? What's
Texas.
Oh, it's Dallas, that's right. Major 2 is Birmingham. So either way, you know, and then what is Major 4 Paris? It's Paris, right? France?
Is that the France one? And then Major 4 is Atlanta, and then Champs.
No,
is
Major
Vegas?
3 is Atlanta because that's in May. Major 4 is Paris, and then Champs is in Vegas. I think that's the layout. Anyway, so yeah, Major 1's Dallas. So scratch that. We would not have to be up early as fuck. But if we did it for Major 2 and Major 4, we'd have to be up early as fuck. Anyway, regardless, we'll work out the kinks on that and see if we can't, you know, kind of figure that out a little bit more. Because I think I would love to watch Party them. That'd be dope as fuck. I mean, I'd take off work for it to watch Party it over the weekend. So, yeah, that'd be a good time. So we'll work out the kinks of that. If you guys want to see that, again, let us know. We would love to do it as long as time permits. And yeah, so again, we thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. I'm T. That's Will. Will, send us out of here.